One of the most unique Leica lenses around is the 28mm Summilux lens attached to the Leica Q cameras. It's a small lens, it has macro functionality, and it has autofocus. We always talk about the Q cameras. I want to talk about the Summilux lens attached to my Q3. And I want to answer the question, is it really a 28mm lens? There are 4 generations of Leica Q cameras. Everyone comes with the same 28mm Summilux 1.7 ASPH lens attached. And even though we talk about megapixels and low light performance of the sensor, every photographer knows in the end it comes down to the quality of the glass. Of course it helps when a sensor is capable of capturing the whole potential of a lens. Leica has a great history of fantastic lenses. For every of their camera systems, they're thriving for perfection. The Q system only has that one 28mm lens, even though many photographers would wish it would be a 35 or a 50mm lens on the Q. But now we have the 28. There are rumors on the internet that that is not true. Stay until the end of the video and I will try to answer this question. Regular viewers of my channel know by now that the Leica Q2 was my first Leica ever. And researching Leica glass was basically the thing that brought me into the Leica brand and I decided to go all in. So what's so special about that lens? When I first got my Q2, I took it to my trip to Shanghai. Along came my Nikon C7 at the time with some pro lenses. Later, when I looked at the pictures, I was blown away by the difference of sharpness, of the color rendering, of the contrast, of everything. That lens just completely blew me away. Let's get the technical specs out of the way first. The Leica Summilux 28mm f1.7 ASPH has 11 lenses in 9 segments, 3 spherical lens areas. The lens filter thread is an E49. It has optical image stabilization. You have to turn it on or off in the settings. The aperture range starts from f1.7 and goes up to f16 in 1/3 EV increments. The focus range is 30 centimeters to infinity. And it has auto and of course manual focus. I will go into the autofocus system later in this video. But now I want to have a look at the lens. It's smaller than an SL lens. It has more the shape of a fast and larger M lens. It's 55mm long and has a diameter of 68mm. The weight I cannot measure because it's attached to the camera and I found no information on the internet on the actual weight of only the lens. So if you have any information on how heavy the lens actually is, it would be very interesting for me, so please leave it in the comments. Out of the box, the lens comes with this beautiful lens cap and with this iconic lens hood attached. You can unscrew that lens hood. Leica does not recommend to detach the lens hood because then there is a possibility of vignetting. But if you want to use it like this, because now it looks like a regular lens, they have a protective ring that comes with the camera that you can screw on the lens. This way you can attach a regular 49mm lens cap on the lens, so the lens is protected as well when you're not shooting. I personally like the lens hood, so I'm gonna reattach it. So let's look closer at the lens. In the front you have the aperture ring. It goes from 1.7 to 16, 1/3 increments. When you turn it down to 1.7, it stops. It has like a little block. But if you give it a little bit more force, you can turn it to A, and then it snaps, and then you are in shutter priority mode. I like to set my aperture, especially with the fast lenses, manually, so I rarely use that shutter priority mode. When we go to the next ring, we have the focus ring. It works like a regular focus ring, and you can also use the scale here to zone focus. I explained zone focusing in my rangefinder video. Maybe you check that out after watching this video if you're interested in zone focusing. And now comes the special thing with this lens. And I think it's a unique thing that I actually only saw on this Leica Q lens, and I don't know other brands that have the same functionality, because if you want to go into autofocus, basically works the same like if you want to go into shutter priority mode, but you turn on the focus ring, and now there is on the back of the camera, you have this little knob which you can use to set your focus, and there is a little button in that, and if you press that button, you're able to turn the ring until AF. I'm gonna do it again. I'm now in manual focus, and it ends on infinity. And if I now press here, I can turn the ring onto AF. It snaps into AF, and now I'm in autofocus mode. This is absolutely fantastic, because when you're shooting in manual focus mode and you want to switch into autofocus, you can still look through the EVF, and you don't have to do a menu setting, you don't have to find a switch or something on the lens, you just go over that little mark and then you are in autofocus mode. The other way around, when you want to quickly switch into manual mode, you don't need to take the camera down, you just can press that button, you turn the focus ring, and you are in manual mode. This, I think, is one of the coolest inventions they did for this camera system. And then we have the third ring. And this is the macro functionality of the lens. Because it's not only a small lens with autofocus, it is also a small lens with autofocus and macro functionality. So when you turn that ring, the scale changes and you are in macro mode. Let me do it again. So now I'm in regular mode. Scale changes, and now I'm in macro mode. When you are changing into macro mode, the close focus becomes 17 centimeters. It goes from 30 centimeters to 17 centimeters. And the fastest aperture is not 1.7 anymore, it's 2.8. So in macro mode, the fastest aperture you can use is 2.8. Now let's talk about the autofocus functionality of that lens. Like every lens that is capable of autofocus, it strongly depends on the body that it is attached to. This is basically one, if not the reason to upgrade to the Leica Q3, because the Leica Q3 is the first camera body in the Q system that works with hybrid autofocus. The first Leica Q cameras, the Q, the QP and the Q2, only work with contrast autofocus. And contrast autofocus is not that accurate, or let's say it's not that fast. And if you don't have clear contrasts in your frame, it's harder for the system to focus. The switch to the hybrid focusing system really is a big step forward for the Q system. So what is the hybrid AF system? It's a combination of contrast metering, depth mapping, and phase comparison metering with AF metering points in the sensor. The different generations of Q bodies also differ in the amounts of metering fields. The initial Q has 49, the Q2 has 225, and the Q3 now has 315 metering fields. And now to the big question: is the 28 really a 28mm? On the internet there is a rumor that the field of view is actually a bit wider. In the end, it's physics. And I'm sure when Leica calls it a 28mm, it will fulfill the parameters a 28mm has to fulfill. Nevertheless, I tried in my own way to put this to a test. I took my SL2 camera, I put my Vario Elmarit 2490 on it, and I set it to 28mm. I put it on a little table tripod and pointed it into my office. I leveled it and I remembered the middle point of the frame, the little corner of the tables. Then I took a broad series of pictures, starting at 24mm, always turning the zoom ring slightly further. After that, I carefully took away the SL2 from the tripod and I put the Q3 on the same tripod that I didn't move. I leveled it, I set the middle of the frame at the same corner and took a picture with the same aperture as with the SL2. Of course, I'm human and I'm not a high precision machine, so the two pictures are not absolutely the same. But it should give us an idea. In the EXIF information of each pictures, I found that there are several small steps for each focal length. So because I change the zoom ring very slowly, I have about 5 to 8 pictures for each 24mm, 25mm, 26mm, 28mm and so on. I imported those pictures into Photoshop and put the Q picture on top of it. I then superimposed it and tried to find the point where I had the same picture. This actually never happened. Again, I am not a physics expert and I have no idea how lenses are built, but I tried to find the closest match. Looking especially at the table and the door, I found a close match with one of the SL2's 26mm photos. So in conclusion, I can say the 28mm lens from the Leica Q show you a little bit more information than the 2490 Vario Elmarit set on 28mm does. Why that is, I have no idea. If you have any idea why, or if you have any explanations why, please leave it in the comments. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to not miss future videos about storytelling, photography, and of course, Leica. If you're interested in the Leica Photos app, check out this video. And if you're also interested in another Leica camera system, the rangefinder system, check out this video. Stay curious!